Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here is the host of The Pleasure Zone, sex, relationship, and intimacy coach and holistic health practitioner, Milica Jelenic.
Welcome, my sweet pleasure seekers. This is a new year. It's a new you. It's a great time to step into having more pleasure. And we're looking at how to enhance pleasure and intimacy, because what a great target to work for and work on. And one of the things that we're going to be looking at today is starting with you, like how to enhance pleasure for you, because if you can't do pleasure for you, it's certainly going to be tricky for you to be able to pass on any tools and ideas for pleasure for your partner to know what you'd like or what you want to do. So, as much as it might seem like a little bit backwards, like, hey, if I'm looking at pleasure and intimacy, doesn't that mean I have to look at, like, what does my partner like? Well, your partner needs to figure out what they like, and then they can teach you what they like. That's the bonus and benefit of great communication. And to me, intimacy and pleasure begin with knowing yourself and your desires. And sometimes the question of what brings you pleasure is one that is so simple yet so complicated that most people don't actually know how to answer it. And when I do ask people like that question in coaching with sex and intimacy, they often don't have an answer for me. So I think one of the things we need to really know is what is that? Like, what does bring you pleasure? And we're also going to be looking at what can enhance intimacy and pleasure for you, and what can enhancing intimacy and pleasure do for you? And also, how can it assist you in your own healing and in having more intimacy in relationships in general? How can enhancing pleasure in your life actually increase your healing? So, irony of ironies, I was going to do this show a different day, but what ended up happening was I got really bogged down by a migraine. And I used my own advice, along with a lot of other tools under my tool belt and toolkit. As a sex and intimacy coach, I'm also a holistic health practitioner. So I looked at all the tools in my tool belt and I started to utilize them. And one of them, believe it or not, guys, with a massive migraine, I used self pleasure to be able to relieve the headache. Most people are like, not tonight, dear. I have a headache. For me, it's like, well, I have a migraine. Let me see what I can do to change that. Thank you. Thank you to my sweet hands for knowing how to work the work. So, in this episode, we're going to be talking about the importance of solo pleasure, solo intimacy too. Believe it or not, you can be intimate with you for over like general wellness, whether that's mind, body, spirit, all of it. And we're also going to be looking at how to set some targets for regular self care, as well as looking at ideas for creating sacred, sensual self care routines, and also incorporating self pleasure tools and techniques. So I hope that for any of you who are kind of going, you know what, I have acute conditions right now, I have chronic conditions right now, I'm wondering how can pleasure and intimacy assist me? Well, I might not be speaking to your specific condition, but a lot of the things we'll be talking about will be very relatable to pretty much everybody who has the capacity, ability, physical ability um, to be able to take part in all the different ideas that I'm going to be sharing with you today, tonight, whenever you're listening. So, why do you think solo pleasure? Because if I say the M word, I'm probably going to get kicked off of a lot of things thanks to the algorithms. That M word, You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. So, why do you think that solo pleasure is essential for your self-care, for allowing you to break down maybe old stigmas that you've had in your life? Could be from childhood, could be from lifetimes, could be religious stigmas, could be there's so many ways that the stigmas could have come in. And we're also going to be looking at some of those topics that I mentioned, like how solo pleasure can assist with overall wellness, can assist with self care, can assist with creating sacred and sensual self care routines, and getting some new tools under your belt to be able to play with all of those things. Solo pleasure, to me, the most fundamental reason to engage in it is to know your body and to know your reactions, especially to things like touch and stimuli. And I know for me that I was like an early starter when it came to solo pleasure, but I wasn't necessarily being a solo pleasurist at the age of 4 because I was horny. It was because I was self-regulating my nervous system. I was living in a home where there was a lot of stress. My parents were going through a divorce. I was going and moving from one home to another, kind of in the middle of the night situations. It was really stressful. And I was also picking up on a lot of energies of a lot of people who were like sexually repressed, whether it was in the home or was there was even like the neighbors or the whole area that I was living in. Picking up on that in my body needed an outlet to be able to express the energy it was feeling. So even as a little being, that's what I was like doing just so that I could self-regulate and help my nervous system feel better. And as I got older, I realized that there was a lot of stigma attached to it. And I don't think I had the word stigma necessarily, but I realized that people put a lot of shame on it, shame on me, shame on anybody who did those things. So it was really key for me to, at that point, hide all of it. Hide all of it. It's shameful. It's scary. It's not good. I think I was probably in grade 13. So at the time in Canada, we had something called OACs, Ontario Academic Credits, which were like a substitute grade 13, which was something that you needed to take in order to go to university. So, and you could fast track. You didn't have to wait till the grade 13. You could do them in grade 12, but I was like, I'll just take all the free education I can get. So I did the grade 13, and it wasn't until then and I had a boyfriend then that I actually let know that that's something that I did, that I self-pleasured. I did not, prior to that, probably ever let anybody know. Probably people figured it out, but there was so much shame attached to it that there was no way I was letting anybody know. And it took quite a while, even after that, to feel confident. And I don't think I was probably 25 or 26 years old. I was in my 20s for sure when I even talked to other women about the fact that this is something that happens, you know? The conversation was, I remember who I had it with. So I was probably 23 actually. And I remember talking to my friend who was older than me and she'd never had an orgasm. And I was like, oh, no way, really? And she didn't masturbate. And I was like, oh, and then I thought it was a little bit weird, but she's like, but everybody else I know seems to. So it was a fascinating conversation. I remember it quite clearly, but I'm not going to give too many details to even out the person to the person in case they're listening. And I found in that conversation how much we repress ourselves and how much we are shameful around sex and how much I had shamed myself around my own expression and sexual feelings. And I think the main thing was to realize that everybody has some kind of level of sexual experience. Even if you're asexual, that's your sexual expression and experience. And, you know, whether you're hypersexual and you're using sex as a way to regulate your body, any scale from any of that is all valid expression. And as long as it's consensual, we're good. So, one of the things for consensual is that when you're a solo pleasurer, you can actually even, I know this is going to sound really weird, but you can even have that conversation with your body as to whether it would like you to pleasure it and how you would like your body to pleasure it. Because sometimes it's just assume you feel horny, you should take care of that. But sometimes your body might be like, I'm horny, I want to ride this wave, and I don't actually want to to bring it, maybe I don't want to bring it to climax, maybe I just want to ride the orgasmic energy for a while and see where it goes. Maybe it will motivate me, maybe it'll energize me, maybe it'll create more in my life. Instead of maybe going to climax and getting exhausted, maybe I want to ride that energy for a while. So definitely ask your body if that's something that it desires. Maybe it just wants to have a long experience of being naked, feeling your sheets on your body. Maybe it just wants to be naked in a bath. Whatever it happens to be, that just feeling your body can be really important, and not necessarily having to go for the gold, go for the climax. So, solo pleasure doesn't always mean that you are going to be engaging in the big M word, that solo pleasure experience where you're bringing yourself to climax. You could be allowing yourself to feel and experience the energy of orgasmic energy rising, and then the fluctuations in there, the rising and the falling. It can be a really beautiful thing. And when we do that and we're listening, it's partly to be able to listen to our bodies, to learn how to have communion with our bodies, to hear what our bodies are asking for and telling us what they desire, and also listening to your body so that if there is stuck energy, like I was talking about last week, stuck energy in the head, um, you can move that, you can move it really quickly, often by self-pleasuring. And again, ask your body, because sometimes if your body is too tired to actually shift the energy, then you're just going to get more bogged down in more tension. So it's good to ask your body whether that's going to create more ease and more peace, and then go from there. So, to me, looking after you and knowing what you desire is incredibly important, because we're the only ones who can say or explain or communicate to our partners what we require and desire. So, when we look at what pleasure is, look at pleasure from not just the physical perspective of like what kind of touch is going to turn you on. You also need the emotional connection. And what kind of emotional connection do you require? Is it something you need to have conversations and reassurance verbally? You might need to have, your mind stimulated with new thoughts and ideas, philosophies. As a sapiosexual, I love when my brain is turned on with new ideas. It is as exhilarating, if not more, than seeing like somebody with a great physique. So that can be a lot of fun. Like, what is solo pleasure for you? Maybe you just want to be able to watch something that stimulates your mind so much that you feel so thoroughly excited that you're good. Like, you don't need to climax in the traditional sense. So, one of the reasons that we actually would choose to have solo pleasure is to, it's a lot of it has to do with self-care, but one of the benefits is it reduces stress and can improve your mood. So one of the things it can do to help reduce stress is it increases endorphins, increases oxytocin, increases serotonin and dopamine. Although a lot of times with touch, you're going to get more of the things like oxytocin and serotonin, but the experience of improving your mood is going to be far greater than if you are not choosing something that's going to give you pleasure for your overall wellness. It's also going to assist you in knowing your body, right? That's what I was talking about as being really key, is like knowing your body. What does your body desire? What kind of touch does it like? What kind of smells, and all the different like sensory experiences that you can bring to the table. all of that can help with your body awareness and confidence. So as you know what you desire, and the more clear you are on what you desire and what you enjoy, and you can put words to that and you can tell your lover or lovers what that is, it can help increase your confidence by being able to say, this is what I really enjoy. And then they can deliver, if they can deliver, they can deliver. And then that's just beneficial for everyone. One of the things that I had mentioned is about using solo pleasure for self-regulation. And a lot of people who have ADHD, or on the spectrum of ADHD, will find that usually solo pleasure is one of the things you can go to help regulate your nervous system and get you out of stress, get you out of scatteredness, can help you focus. And a lot of times, people who are hypersexual, which I've done a show on this, a lot of hypersexuality has been linked to ADHD. So if you happen to have ADHD and you're like, why am I masturbating all the time? Well, you could be self-regulating. And if you are doing this all the time and it's interfering in your work, and life in general, then you'll need to find other methods and means to be able to regulate your nervous system that isn't going to destroy your life. So we're going to look at some more things like goal setting practices, etc. in the next section. You're listening to the Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show, with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Pleasure Zone with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight we're talking about all things to do with pleasure and intimacy and how to have greater, more pleasurable, intimate times in our lives. And we're starting with, guess what? We're starting with you. So how to enhance pleasure and intimacy really comes down to self-practice first, and then incorporating some of these self-care practices into your relationship. So in the last segment, we were talking all about how solo pleasure can really contribute to overall wellness, and talking about reducing stress and improving mood. We're also talking about enhancing your body awareness and confidence, as well as supporting all things to do with your nervous system, helping with emotional regulation. And I think you might notice, if you're on like TikTok or Instagram these days, you might notice that there are more and more things, well, they're popping up in my feed anyway, about ADHD and hypersexuality and the need for learning how to do self-regulation, as well as using masturbation as a means rather than hypersexuality with others, but also keeping an eye on that so that you're not, interfering in your daily life. And then the other thought is like, so it's all great and good to talk about how we can have self pleasure and solo pleasure to be able to enhance our lives, but who's got the time, right? So, what we need to do is actually create some goals, create some practices for self care on a regular basis that involves solo pleasure. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but it's like scheduling masturbation. If you've had a partner in your life and if you've had no time for sex, then lots of people have scheduled sex. And if you're solo in life, for the most part, you can absolutely schedule time for yourself. By all means, you know what? Throw it into Monday nights at 8 o'clock. If you happen to be 8 o'clock Eastern Standard, if you happen to be listening to my show, put it on live, listen to it while you go self pleasure in the background. Use it as a tool, 100%. And I say this because I've actually had people report to me that they do this. So I know that people use it and that they actually utilize it as a time specifically set aside because they don't always have the time to set stuff aside. So my show happens to be a guideline for that, which I think is delightful because and I've mentioned this many times that when I was young and I listened to Sunday Night Sex Show with Sue in Canada, it was like Sunday evenings, it was a great time for even just mental self exploration of what would be sexy in my mind. So I like doing that. So with goal setting, with target setting, one of the things we want to do is we want to look at our intention. Intention is such a weird word, but this is a word that everybody uses. So we're going to use it for this purpose today. But in reality, just know that intention is not I don't like that word. Um, Maybe I'll do a show on why I don't like the word, but I could probably talk about a lot of these words for hours. Um, but I get that people relate to it. So why we need to know what it is that we would like, why we need to prioritize self-care. And a lot of times we just don't. So whether it's self-care as in like going out and getting pedicure or getting your hair cut or getting that massage that your body so needs or coming to me for some body work that your body so needs. Whatever it happens to be for self-care, it's it's that you're setting time aside and you are investing in you. And it doesn't have to be big money. It can be stuff that you can do for yourself. Even, say, soaking your feet in like a nice foot soak can be a way to give yourself self care. Because if you're giving to everybody all the time and you're constantly on the go and you're never really able to stop and take a minute to even see what your needs are, you don't even know how to ask for your needs because you don't even know what your needs are. And then when you finally take a time to stop and figure that out, you're probably so tired, you're like exhausted, you don't know what you desire because you've never taken the time to look at that. And then the resentments start to build, and then there's disconnect happening. And the disconnect can be happening with yourself, and the disconnect can absolutely be happening with others. So it's incredibly important to take the time to see what your needs are. What do you require? And it could be something so simple as just like 20 minutes of sitting having a lovely tea, staring at birds, which is something that I do quite often. I don't necessarily plan it, but sometimes it just happens that my schedule will open up a little break in the day and I'm like, ooh, tea and birds. Here we go. And it can be simple. But when we come to solo pleasure, having the actual time for that is also important. There's lots of times it's going to be spontaneous, but just as much as you might take the time to say meditate on a regular basis in the morning, also take the time to know your body on a regular basis in the morning. And I'm not saying that you need to masturbate until you climax, but if you can connect with your body through touch, your body's going to be super grateful, whether you're touching from your head to your toes. And we've talked about this method as well before, using all of your senses to explore your body. And that is an episode that I did way back in my first year called Fun for One. So you can go back and find that and listen to Fun for One. And it's like a guided masturbation. So enjoy it. It uses all your senses to really bring to you a sense of more awareness of your body, and also to help you get rid of a lot of judgments that you have about yourself, maybe the taste of your body, the smell of your body. That one's a lot of fun. I've done some other ones since as well, but that one's the one that sticks out the most in my mind right now. So know what your priority is with your body. And if it's to help it, say, get out of trauma, which a lot of bodies have a lot of trauma, then incorporating even things that will be trauma releases that can be followed by pleasure releases, and setting those goals that are very specific, that are very measurable, achievable, that are relevant, and that are time-bound goals, which are called SMART goals. So SMART, SMART, in this case, not like smart car, um, is for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals. So if you have a specific goal, uh, target is maybe to have, like I was saying to you guys about the migraine, the specific target was alleviate the migraine. And now it's a measurable target because I can measure how much of a migraine did I have before, how much of a migraine did I have after. And the target is achievable because I know that in the past I've been able to alleviate a lot of pain and stress in my body through self pleasure. And is it relevant? So if it's a relevant goal, which is to feel better, feel healthier, and be able to be functional, it's fantastic. And the time bound part can either be that you've got half an hour to try and do this, or you might have 3 hours set aside, or you might have 15 minutes set aside. And sometimes it can be as simple as setting aside 10 minutes just to try and shift the energy, because that's maybe all the time you've got. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to climax, but you can, go in with the ask of your body to be able to, say, for example, with the migraine, alleviate the pain and the stress in the brain, to be able to shift the energy from the head out the head, through the body, out the feet, in all directions, moving it. And for me, it was very measurable because I could tell there was a reduction in pain from, say, 100% to 75%, and then the next time down to 50%, then the next time down to 25%. So after a few times, I was able to like alleviate the migraine. So I know that sounds weird and wacky for a lot of you, but I encourage you to try it. And just, I would think and I would hope that you recognize that you're worth taking 10 minutes to 20 minutes aside every day to do something that's self-care related, and incorporate pleasure into it because that's part of it. So it's one thing to get your toenails done, fantastic. Now, can you also do something that's going to help your body, not just your toes, but maybe getting your toes done helps your whole body feel better? Fantastic. If all it's doing is helping your feet feel better, then we need to pay attention to the whole body and see what you can offer your whole body in order for it to have solo pleasure in a way that's very different. It's not just about the genitals, it's about incorporating your whole body and allowing every molecule of your body to feel ecstatic, joyful, and pleasured. So I think one of the things that you can do before we go to commercial break is just take a minute to write down one of the things that you feel like you can do in order to look after you, in order to have solo pleasure, whether that's, say, every Saturday morning, you take half an hour, maybe the kids are away, maybe you set this time aside so that you have time that you're going to be uninterrupted. Bring out your favorite toys, your lotions, your whatever you love. turn on your, water and sit in that big tub you've got. I say that because I got a nice big tub that I like to sit in and enjoy your body. Solo pleasure is very much about enjoyment, and it doesn't necessarily mean climax. I can't emphasize that enough. Um, it does equal pleasure, does not always equal climax, and that's a-okay. So we're going to head to our next commercial break. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show, with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. So tonight we are talking all about incorporating more pleasure and intimacy into our relationships and how to add more pleasure and more intimacy in our lives, which doesn't just mean, with somebody. It also means enhancing it for ourselves personally. So if you forget that in a relationship that you're actually there and you count, that's often where things go really south. So in a relationship, you also need to have your needs met. And if it's always about the other person and what they need and require and their timing and their this and their that, you're in a relationship on your own and they're not looking after your needs. So you really need to have those conversations so that your needs are met too. And hopefully they are able to do that with you and that they care enough that they will do that. So we're talking on this next segment here all about creating sacred and sensual self-care routines. So why is it important that it's sacred and sensual? Sacred is a word that people are bouncing around a lot all over, the internet. Sacred space, sacred this, sacred that. It is sacred is actually an interesting word. It also has a root that's similar to sacrifice, but we won't get into that completely today because I can go on tangents about the etymology of words and which is fun, but it's also a tangent. So having something be sacred in this case has to do with creating something for you that you feel very connected to. And that's going to have you drawn back to repeat this as sort of a new routine in your life. So whether it's having your own space to be able to have sacred time by yourself, whether it's a place that you go to or a place in your home, whether you have created this on purpose and this space is only for that purpose, that's fantastic as well. Whether you've created that space but it has a shared purpose. So, for example, in our lives, we have this beautiful space where we have retreats. We have small retreats with up to 6 people. And in there, we've got a beautiful bathtub that looks out to the woods. And so I love being able to sit in there and look out at the woods playing. Usually I listen to hang drum music because I love the beat of hang drum. Sometimes I'll listen to music that is from it's like cross-cultural, usually music from other countries, from different languages, and I find that's great for getting out of my head because I don't necessarily always know the language, so then my brain can't think about the lyrics always. So, or something with no lyrics, which is also the kind of music I like to listen to doing like somatic breath work. So getting into that space where you're kind of you're connecting to you, but not analyzing. You're disconnecting from the analytical part and getting into the feeling. So we have the rational brain and we have the emotional brain. And in this case, we're getting into the emotional brain and we're connecting to our feelings, we're connecting to our bodies and listening to things that maybe you don't know the words to, but you like the beat in the background. Fantastic. So you're going to create that space. And whether you're lighting candles that you enjoy the smell of, or you've maybe put some drops in the bath that can help give you more of a sense of relaxation or invigorating smells as well. And it's not always using the same thing. Like most people will be like, use lavender. I know a lot of people who, if you put lavender in their bathtub, they'd go rangy and want to like scratch your eyeballs out. So it's not a go-to for everyone. You need to look at what smells work for you. So if you happen to have some essential oils that you like, then put a couple drops in your water and put some, Celtic salts in there, or some really good Epsom salts. Got to make sure you got the good stuff because some Epsom salts these days have like plastics in them, and you want to make sure you're getting the real Epsom salts so you're not soaking in a plastic bath. So you're going to create the space, have the mood. So in my space, there's also a fire that I like to have rocking and rolling behind me. And it's nothing like a wood stove. I love my wood stove. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen a post that I put out today with my wood stove that I'm cooking dinner on the wood stove. I freaking love wood stoves. I love the smell of them. I love the heat from them. I love them. I love the fire. I love the look and the feel and all of it. So I get all of this set up to give myself like a spa day, you could say. And whether I choose to climax or not, it doesn't really matter. What it is a time for me. And, if I just sit there with my hands on my knees and have a connection to my body and my body is happy with that, then that's what I do. It's not something where it's a you have to do this and you must achieve climax. No, none of that's a rule because that's incredibly stressful. It's all about inviting my body to relax, have ease, regulate my nervous system so that the experience is healing, being able to regulate my mood too, so that, I'm not like frantic and thinking about a million other things. So I like to do that when, the house has been cleaned, the laundry is done, everything's kind of put away, supper's on that wood stove, and then I can just go sit in my tub and chill out for like 45 minutes to an hour because my tub holds the heat so well. I freaking love it. And whether it's the lighting, but what I really like is the sight. I like for my sight part of the senses, I like to be able to look out at the woods and I can see like the birds in the trees and all that sort of thing. And there's like paintings on the wall that we have, so I like that look. And then putting on the music and getting the sense. And then just whether it's like, maybe I have a sore muscle on my leg, whether it's just like massaging the sore spots, maybe no part is sore and I'm just relaxing into ease of enjoying my body. Fantastic. You know, even getting out of the bath and having like a really nice, luxurious bath towel is so great. I love the feeling of a good towel. It just makes me happy. And by all means, you know, while you're sitting there, so our tub has like a little ledge thing on it, and you can put, you know, I could put my drinks up there. I love a good hot tea. And, you know, I don't really eat in the tub, but I do like having a nice tea in the tub. And I know lots of people who do eat in the tub as well. They might have like snacks and read books and whatever. I don't really read books in the tub, but lots of people do. So that's another one for sight, is that you could bring in a book. But I like audios too, and sometimes an audio book will do me good. So that's something that I usually, when I get to do that, that's like a kind of a midday experience once I've got everything done on a weekend, like a Saturday or Sunday if I don't have clients in home in the cabin in that part of the home, then I enjoy my space to myself for a few hours. And it can be just as invigorating as going away for a weekend and paying, you know, hundreds of dollars to go to a spa. I kind of have my own space for that. If that sounds delightful to you and you'd like to actually take the time to come on up to on wherever you're from, come on down, come on up, come on east, come on west to where I am in Ontario, Canada for a little retreat of up to 6 people. You could come by yourself. Connect with me through my website, send me an email and say, hey, I'm interested in your retreats. And those retreats are personally curated for whatever your needs are. If you need me to walk away and leave you alone for 2 or 3 days and you just have the cabin to yourself, that's what I do. If you want me to come and work on you and align your spine and do body work and somatic movement and breath work and all kinds of things, then that's what I do. So I got lots of options and choices. If that's something that you would like as part of your self-care routine, is to be able to have some getaways that are affordable and fun and pleasurable, I'm a great resource for that. So there are so many other ways that we can start to commit and choose into us having our own pleasure times. So I encourage you to even start this month for 1 month. Like, this doesn't have to be for the rest of your life. Choose a day for, you know, one day of the week, even. Say it's a Tuesday night or a Saturday morning, that you're choosing to set at least half an hour aside, 20 minutes to half an hour aside, just for you, just for fun, and go and find what pleasures you and what you like, because this is how then you can come back to your partner. If you have one or if you don't, you can be in the world and feel more relaxed, more at ease. Uh, just your mood will shift, your health will shift, your body will be happier. When our nervous systems are calm, our bodies heal. So if we can do everything to help that and nurture that, and solo pleasure is definitely an amazing resource to get your body out of, say, the funk of being frozen or out of fight or flight, and having your body be able to calm down and connect. And as you can do that for yourself, then you can start to do that with a partner. And when you have calm, cool, collected sex, your connection is stronger, the intensity is far greater, the your body's response is way more intense and fascinating, and it just opens your world up. So the choice to be present sexually is going to be a game changer for you. So take the time to design a little time for you, like in the way that I described for you what I do. You could do something like that for yourself. Now, you might not have that super soaker tub, but if you want to try one out, remember, connect with me through my website, milicajelenic.com, and I can show you what we've got happening here. And whether that's that, or you know, you need that time to yourself to go. Right now in Canada, we've got snow on the ground. Maybe you just want to go like lay on some snow and just like chill out for a while. Maybe you want to do something that's physically active to get some tension and stress out of your body. Maybe you like want to go running or skiing or whatever it happens to be that is for you. And then if you can, though, also take the time to set aside so that you're not just doing workouts. Those are great, though. That's all part of self-care. But the self-pleasure care is equally as important to your health as, say, you know, getting your cardio in or any of those physical routines that you might be doing. Self-pleasure is equally important for your health and well-being and for your mental health. So definitely step into those more. We're going to have a little break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how we can incorporate some different tools and techniques into the self-pleasure routine so that we can have greater pleasure and intimacy. When we come back, you're listening to the Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show, with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is the Pleasure Zone with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. We are having a great and fun conversation all about self-pleasure and intimacy. And how do we start? We start with ourselves, right? We always start with where are we at? Because if something that we really desire is to have more pleasure, or something that we desire is to have more intimacy, then the chances are that we're not doing it for ourselves first. And sometimes even if you think you are, you're like, well, I masturbate 3 times a day. That doesn't mean that you're actually connecting with you. You might just be going through the motions in order to relieve stress, which can be helpful in reducing things like cortisol levels and endorphins and things, but they can also spike them. So you need to also consider that the target is not always to climax. The target is to heal the body. Whatever that looks like. So it's to get out of trauma, to get out of stresses, to get out of all these different things that would stop you from connecting to you, which stops you from connecting to a partner. So our bodies are pretty freaking smart. And one of the things they just intuitively can often know how to do if they haven't been stopped is to find ways to create stimulation, like to be stimulated, to be turned on. So there is a difference between your body being stimulated and your body giving permission. And we've had this discussion a lot before. So if you're with a partner and your body happens to be stimulated, it doesn't mean that you're giving permission. It just means your body's stimulated. It's really important that when you're doing play that is, beyond the play with yourself, that just because you're stimulated doesn't mean you've given permission. Permission is key. And we've had that conversation on here before many times, but I don't think you can emphasize it enough that it's really key that there's permission, consent, as one of our C words, as well as recognizing the difference between what is consent and what is just stimulation, what is consent and stimulation together. So what we want to look at in this segment is how we can actually enhance all the different experiences of self-pleasure by adding things like tools and techniques. So when we think about tools for sex, we're looking at things like vibrators, wands, other sex aids. There's ones that can be used from a distance. There's like ones with apps. There's dildos that don't, they don't vibrate. They're that one that doesn't vibrate. The one that doesn't vibrate, that's a dildo. So the ones that do vibrate, guess what? They're vibrators. And they come in many different shapes and sizes and kinds. I know that years ago, like the favorite of the hour was something called the rabbit. And I found that one so overly stimulating that I actually fell asleep. So it's really important to get a vibrator that works for you. If you're investing in a vibrator, make sure that you know what kind of stimulation you like the most. If you prefer clitoral stimulation, you want a clitoral vibrator. If you prefer vaginal stimulation, you want a vaginal vibrator. If you're going for a G-spot orgasm, you want one that has like a little bit of a hook to it so that you get the correct positioning. If you want all three stimulated at the same time, there are ones that are like triple action vibrators. There are ones that are quadruple actually too, where you can also have something going into your bum hole. So when you are picking materials for vibrators, it's really good to go and see how they feel, see what they feel like. You want to get materials that are, well, I prefer things like glass, metal, or silicone because they're easy to clean. There are some old gel materials that they felt good, but they also weren't the best when it came to bacterial growth. Like even if you clean those, I just don't trust that material too much because it's highly porous and it's got a sticky feeling to it at like all times, and it's so awkward, and like everything sticks to it, including dust. So you have to store those really well. And if you store them with other things of the same material, they can melt into each other, even in temperatures that aren't hot. So definitely, when you have toys, keep them in keep them well because you're investing in these things. And so you want to keep them in, a in something like a box, or the bags like silky bags, to make sure that they're kept so they're not touching each other and like melting into each other. And if they're the older kind that you had like batteries that were removable, you want to take the batteries out as well so the batteries don't leak and rot in your toy. And if they aren't the old kind and the new kind that has charging systems, then make sure that they're charged after use because they often only last about 1 to 2 hours after use. So you might use up the battery. So you want to make sure that they're charged for fun too. And then even for yourself, if you are into trying to do some self-exploration with different kink things, I would say that certain things you want to make sure you have somebody there just in case. Because things like asphyxiation, like autoerotic asphyxiation, can lead to death if you can't catch yourself in time to cut something off of your throat so that you're, choking to death. You want to have certain things that are in place for safety. So safety is super important when it comes to toys and kink and self-exploration. You'll want to make sure that you're doing things that are kind of more, I would say, just on the edge of vanilla into kink so that you're safe. When you are more confident with your body and yourself and can talk to your partner about your desires, then you can start to incorporate some of the other things in the kink world that we've talked about many times on this show. If you're interested in kink talk, there's probably 40 or 50 episodes dedicated to kink alone, maybe more. So remember that your body in time, as you start to play, will start to know what it desires. So take the time to breathe, like breathing in, breathing out, sensing your body. And then you can even learn to like flex different things, squeezing your pubococcygeal muscle, which is like when you go pee and you need to stop your pee. That, feel it out, see how your body responds, and just keep playing and enjoying. And remember to stay tuned in and turned on.
Thank you for choosing to listen to The Pleasure Zone with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic. We'll return next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.